Hiya, my name is Taj Fregene, and I'd like to thank the team at SRFC for asking me to shoot this lockdown video for you guys today. I hope that you're okay, and I hope that you and the people close to you are managing to stay safe through this whole pandemic. Um, I'm really excited to speak to you today because SRFC, I think, will always have like a special place in my heart because it was directly as a result of an SRFC event as I managed to get my agent. And Caroline asked me to share the story of how that happened. So, background is my day job is I'm a doctor. I'm an anaesthetist, and so I've been spending the last few months of this COVID crisis bombing around the intensive care units. But if you think back to March the 10th, so this is before lockdown, um, there was an SRFC event. Now, from what I was seeing at work, I could see that the writing was very much on the wall, and I was like, this is probably going to be my last night out. And on that date, Gareth L. Powell was meant to be speaking at the SRFC event. And I was like, he's one of my favourite authors. I'll try to get him to sign a copy of Light of the Impossible Stars for me. I didn't get the memo that Gareth couldn't make it that day, but I turned up, I had a great time, and at that event, got chatting at the bar to this lady called Anna, who turned out to be Anna Smith Spark, who was one of the authors giving a talk that day. So when I found this out, I was like, Anna, look, I've written this story. How did you get your agent? Do you have any advice, any tips for me? And she was so like generous and kind with her time. And she said, spoke about her journey. They asked me about my story and asked her where I was at. So I'd finished my novel probably back end of 2019. And at that point, I was just going through it, looking for typos, getting errors right, trying to get it as good as I can get it. And Anna said to me, what are you doing? What are you playing about? Stop mucking around. Pull your finger out, just submit it. See, the agents don't care about typo stuff, just enter your story. And then afterwards, for the next few days, Anna would message me and said, have you submitted yet? Have you submitted yet? Have you submitted yet? Until the point I was like, okay, I'm doing it, and press send. So press send to my submissions. And then within a couple of weeks, actually, I was sitting on multiple offers of representation from literary agents. So, SRFC, Anna Smith Spark, thank you for giving me the kick that I needed to actually get my submissions in. So a little bit about me. So since I was a little kid, I love reading. I read all sorts of genres, all sorts of things, but I think the genre that I keep being pulled back to again and again and again is sci-fi. And when I was making this video, I was thinking, why is that? Why do I love sci-fi? And then actually, if I think back to when I first started enjoying it, it probably wasn't a book that got me into it, but it was a computer game. So back in the day, back in the 90s, I had this Amiga 500, and there'd be these computer game magazines that came out every month, and one called CU Amiga, and it had these demo discs stuck to the front of it. So I loaded up one of these discs and started playing this game. This game is called Dune, and I really enjoyed it. And I must have read somewhere that this game was based on a book. And at that age, I was always in and out of the library. I was spent so many of my teenage years in the library reading stories. Anyway, so I got a copy of Frank Herbert's Dune from the library, and I just loved it. I loved the complexity of it. I loved the fact that, there were all these different factions doing different things that weren't necessarily tied to the main plot, and I love how complicated it was. It all kind of melded together at the end and at the same time. So from that point on, I always sort of sought out the sci-fi speculative side of fiction. Recently, I've read books by Becky Chambers, and I'm currently reading The Accidental War, which is a new Praxis novel by Walter John Williams, which I'm really enjoying as well. But if I think back to what my favourite story is of all time, and it's hard for me to think of what that may be, but actually it's always come back to this book, Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. It's a classic. It's brilliant. I love it. It's a story that is meant to be about one thing, but it's actually about something completely different. So what's Jurassic Park about? Oh, it's about dinosaurs. But it's not really about dinosaurs. It's about the fragility of complex systems. It's about corporate sabotage. It's about the hubris of creators. But I reread this probably about 12 months ago, 18 months ago now, recently. And I just forgotten how bloody scary this story is. After reading it, I had nightmares. I woke up after that night and I was like, I'm an adult human being. I've not had nightmares for ages, but I had this nightmare of being stalked by these dinosaurs. So I think, it's so evocative. It's great, and it's probably my favorite stories. And as you probably tell, it's a story I keep coming back to it just from like a craft point of view. Just so like, how did Michael Crichton create a story that's so complicated, so dense, and so vivid? I keep going back to it to pick up tips. And what was interesting from the craft point of view, actually, one of the many things that's interesting about this book is that it's a prologue. It doesn't have one prologue. It does have two prologues. This story starts with three prologues before the main story starts. So Michael Crichton, I think, is a bit of a genius of our times. But this story is old. I think it's about 30 years old that Jurassic Park came out. So a book that I've read more recently that I've really enjoyed is this one, Exhalation by Ted Chiang. Never have I had my mind blown so many times in such a short period of time as I did when I was reading this story. So for those of you who don't know, Ted Chiang writes short stories and novellas, and this is a collection of short stories and novellas by him. And what he does, he takes like a philosophical idea, such as determinism, learning literacy in adulthood, such as artificial consciousness, religions, and he weaves it into a short story or a novella that is dense and beautiful and great. I mean, the first one in this book is one called The Merchant and the Alchemist Guild, and it's brilliant, and the collection just kicks on from there. So definitely recommend Exhalation by Ted Chiang and his previous short story collection as well, The Stories of Your Life and Others. So I've spoken a lot about other people's stuff, but I'm going to talk about my own story, All of Our Tomorrows. So as previously mentioned, I'm a doctor, and I had the idea for this story back in 2015. I finished writing it probably 2019, was tidying it up through the start of this year. And my story is a pandemic story. So this whole coronavirus crisis had this extra layer of weirdness for me. Not only have we gone through lockdown, not only did we get hammered in our intensive care units at work, but I also was watching events unfold pretty much in some circumstances how I'd written them years ago. So, and not in a good way either. So I'm going to read a little bit from the start of the story. So the premise of the story is this. There's an an idealistic junior doctor called Emma. She goes off and volunteers to work as a doctor in rural Ivory Coast. She quickly finds herself, out of her depth. And even worse than that, there's this outbreak of this new disease called Ishkara. Things get worse and worse, and eventually she has to leave Ivory Coast and run away, come back home to the UK. But Ishkara doesn't stop there. It spreads and becomes this global pandemic. And Emma has got to learn how to stop running away and become a leader before all that she loves is destroyed. So here's the bit from the start of All of Our Tomorrows. Tienco, Côte d'Ivoire. Joseph hurried along the street, picking his way over discarded packets of food and empty plastic water bags. In a few months, the Harmattan winds would blow dust down from the Sahara and turn the air ochre and brown, but for now, the sky was clear and the setting sun bathed the world in godly beauty. He fished his phone out of the pocket of his powder blue overall and picked up the pace. If he ran, he'd make it home in time to help put his baby daughter Hope to bed. Just. There was a new poster outside the mosque. The blood-red capitals read, "Ishkara is real. If you experience a cough or fever, stay at home." There'd been an identical one outside the forecourt this morning. Joseph shook his head. Stay at home? What sort of nonsense was that? Ishkara was a sickness that the city people kept talking about, but if he stayed home, how could he work? How could he buy food for his family? What would the people in the compound think of him? He checked his phone again and relaxed. He was going to make it. Joseph rounded the corners to the low steel-roof structure that his family had been calling home for the last 2 years. The naked bulb inside shone onto the morass of churned earth in front, casting stark shadows. He stopped. Normally, his wife would be outside with other women from their congregation. Their children would be rushing in and out playing some game or other, but today the only sound was a thud, thud, thud of the compound's generator. Joseph pulled aside the cloth that covered the doorway and immediately stepped back. It stank of shit and vomit. Breathing slowly, he crept inside once more. There, barely more than a whisper, he heard his wife singing an old lullaby that everybody knew. Sleep, sleep till tomorrow, leave all your worries of the day. Leave all your problems till the morning and let me kiss your cares away. Joseph peered round the opening to the bathroom. The woman he loved sat sprawled on the floor, sobbing. Her normally lustrous jet black hair was stuck to her forehead with sweat, and her eyes were bloodshot from the shedding of so many tears. His wife was a proud woman. In the district, she was famous for her impeccable attire, and she was something of a fashion icon to the younger women of their church. What Joseph saw was so at odds with the woman he loved that he had to blink and look again. Lady H, he said, calling her by the name that she allowed only him to use. She pushed the sweat-laden hair out of her face, and Joseph saw Hope's tiny body cradle in her arms. Without thinking, he was on the floor, with his arms around them both. My love, what happened? What happened? He held his wife's face in his hands, breathing in her stale sweat, eyes frantically searching her face, trying to understand. Hope got the fever, and it never went away. Her voice was raspy and thick, every word forced past her parched lips by the sheer strength of her will. She won't drink. She just won't drink. Josie lifted his baby daughter from his wife's arms. Hope did not cry and Hope did not move. She was breathing fast, too fast. Each and every one of her tiny ribs stuck out as she gasped in the sticky bathroom air. Josie's vision blurred. My baby, my baby, my baby, my baby. He turned to face his wife. Why aren't you at the clinic? We need help. We need a doctor. His wife rolled her head towards him. I tried, but I cannot go. She lifted a glistening arm and pointed to the bucket at her feet, a bucket filled with blood and vomit. A sad smile flickered at the corner of her lips, but faded quickly, as though she did not have the strength to hold it. My love, she whispered, I am sick too. So that's the start of all of our tomorrows, which, like I say, we're hoping to submit to editors, to publishers in the next few weeks. If you want to know more, let's connect. Let's connect on Twitter. My handle is my name, @Taj Fregene, or Instagram. My handle is the same, @Taj Fregene, or head over to my website, tajfregene.com. Drop me an email, and I'll let you know how this path goes and where this journey is going to take me next. So thank you again to the team at SRFC, and I wish you all safety, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and hopefully we can meet in person soon. Bye for now.